How's it going, everybody? Fernando, the Lone Star Halo, joined here by John of DLLS Rangers. We got Todd here as well. We're going to talk Angels, we're going to talk Rangers, and we're going to talk about the state of the AL West. All that and more coming up next.
Hey, you are now listening or watching the Halos in the Infield podcast, sponsored in part by Noble L Works over on 1621 South Sinclair, where you can get discounts by just mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Drink discounts on us, baby. And also by 714 Tickets, 714 Tickets, 714 Tickets. The price you see is the price you get, and you also get 10% additionally off in the Apply Now code once you order your tickets just by mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Now enjoy the show.
In the land of last shores, I play my part with the Halos in the infield. I'll make my mark. I'm the Lone Star Halo, shining bright tonight. In a sea of Rangers, I'll stand and fight with the Halos in the outfield under stadium lights. From Texas to Anaheim, we'll soar to new heights. We'll soar to new heights.
Yes, this is the Lone Star Halo podcast. We're joined here by John of DLLS Rangers and a couple of other projects. John, let's let you introduce yourself. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, if they're local Ranger fans, not all, but some know me. My Twitter handle is Recliner Nerd, at Recliner Nerd, at both Twitter and Instagram. I've been covering the Rangers since 2019. I co-host what used to be the Rangers Today baseball podcast, is now the DLLS Rangers Weekly podcast, part of DLL Sports, which is at ALLDLLS.com. That's the website. They cover everything from the Rangers, Stars, local DFW sports, the Mavs, and the Rangers. And I do a weekly thing with them with Jeff Wilson, my co-host. And that's us. We cover the team. And I'm a Ranger fan, so that's why I'm on with you guys too, because I am a big fan of the Rangers.
Yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Rangers, of course, the Angels, of course, and just where we are in terms of the AL West going forward. Todd, do you have anything before we get started, sir?
Yeah, I mean, you hear John. We are talking with a broadcaster as yourself that is very deep in trench team. We are, and sometimes we get labeled as this is not how we portray ourselves, because we're just being real. And I don't know if the Rangers have their side of fans that are just the grass is always greener. And if you do have those side of fans, what do you call them? Because on this side, we call them honks. Like, they call themselves Halo honks, and we can't stand them. So we like to be more of the realist. Are you a realist? So, like, do the Rangers have on there and we called?
So you're talking about Ranger fans that are the grass is always green, everything's glass half full. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're breaking up just a little bit, Todd. So
Okay, I thought that was just my internet. I put on the private chat. I'm like, what's going on, guys?
yeah. So anyway, we call them homers. I'm one. They're always glass half full, but I tell you, more than that, we've got the guys that I call them the ones that live in perpetual grief. No matter what the Rangers do, it's never good enough. Even up until they won the World Series, they were almost complaining about something. I mean, it's crazy. We have those fans too. I'm sure you got some of those that they can't find a reason to be happy. And look, the Angels are a little down this year, kind of in a rebuild, coming back and got a good manager in place there. And you know, I think coming in, most Angel fans were realistic, or at least they should have been. I mean, you do have one of the best players in all of baseball on that team. Maybe they were a little upset because Ohtani left. I don't know, but we call them homers, and then you've also got, I call them the people that are just professional, always in a bad mood. You know, they're just always in a bad mood no matter what.
Well, did they clash with your style of reporting on the Rangers this year? Because obviously you probably told the truth about the Rangers just didn't have a good season this year.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, everyone did. Everyone loves to sit in their armchair and be armchair GM, and try to, there's people that understood, let's just, in a synopsis, it wasn't good. I mean, you could go out, the Rangers win a World Series. They basically have 8 of the 9 players that were in the lineup in the World Series back. They have a full rotation coming back. They only lost Jordan Montgomery. So it looked like the Rangers were ready to repeat or at least make a run and do that. And they just never got going. There were some injuries. The Josh Young injury obviously hurt at the first of the year. Corey Seager ended up having a sports hernia we didn't know about, and he didn't get a surgery till right before spring training, so he missed all of spring training. And so you can say injuries, but every team has injuries.
Oh, yeah.
So what really this boils down to is they underperformed. Jonah Heim was not near as good as he was last year. Neither was Adolis Garcia. Neither was Simeon. Simeon had a good year, but he wasn't anything like he was last year. They depended too much on they brought in Wyatt Langford, who was the rookie, he was the number 4 overall pick last year. After he was drafted, he comes in and he just flat out kills AA, AAA, and there was even talk of maybe pulling him up last year at the end. And so he makes the opening day roster. They kind of assume him and Evan Carter are just going to anchor that outfield along with Adolis. Carter gets hurt, and Wyatt Langford was a rookie. I don't care who you are and how great you are. In the second half of the season, he might have won the American League Rookie of the Year, but you're going to face the best pitching in the world, and you're not just going to go do what you did at Florida. I mean, these are the best pitchers in the world.
Yeah, I think the Rangers this year, last thing I got on that is they remind me of the 2003 Angels. We won the World Series and we basically got one free agent and just right back and expected those career years in 2002 to just magnify into 2003.
Yeah. Yeah, look, a lot of luck goes into winning a World Series. I mean, it's not just, you got to be good. Don't get me wrong. You have to be good, but a lot of it also is you got to have some luck. This year, look, the starting pitching for the Rangers wasn't bad. I mean, they kept teams to 4 runs and under most of the year, including the bullpen, which was the disaster last year that just got hot at the right time. And but when you can't score, I mean, the Rangers couldn't score runs this year. I mean, poor Andrew Heaney, he went out there and the Rangers hardly ever scored. I mean, they probably averaged 1.5 runs a game for the guy, and he did his job. You can't win ball games if you're not going to score. If you're keeping a team to 4 runs, you should be in every game.
So it seems like what you're saying the Rangers' issue was this year was last year you had some just mammoth years from some guys, right? Absolute career years. You already mentioned Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim, just to name a couple. And then this year it seems like those same pieces had the complete opposite, right? I mean, I went to quite a few Rangers games this year. I mean, Adolis Garcia was batting, under 220 for the bulk of the year.
Right.
And, he was obviously one of the key pieces to last year's playoff run. I mean, unfortunately, he got injured there. But, he was a key reason as to why they made it that far, especially in that Astros series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, no one expected anyone to perform like they did last year, but they expected them to perform like they had before last year. They went under that. So, I mean, that was where your problem lied. And look, it does hurt to have one main bat in that lineup, which was Josh Young. So, but you can't make an excuse. They didn't pick each other up. Last year they were so good at manufacturing. They kind of looked good towards the end of the year, like maybe it's come together. But nobody can discount this either. This team there was only one person that had ever won a World Series before. It was and a couple of them had, but for your position players, it was Corey Seager, and that was during the COVID year when he was with the Dodgers. But these guys, I'm telling you right now, these guys came out and played all the way to the end of October. That's a short off season. And when you come back from that, and it's not an excuse because you would rather have a short off season every year. But I take that as some of it too. And maybe now they know when they get in that situation how to better handle it. But if anyone knows Bruce Bochy, He's got the Bochy curse, and every year he's ever won a World Series, the next year they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it happened with the Giants, and what would happen that every other year, they'd win the World Series. So the jury's out if that's going to happen here in Texas. Now, let's talk a little bit more before we switch topics about the Rangers. I do want to ask, going into this offseason, what are the biggest points of need for the Texas Rangers, and how realistic is it that those needs will be met? I know in one of your episodes, you guys had mentioned you expect the ownership to do a little bit more in terms of spending money because they have one of the biggest markets that doesn't have a double baseball team situation like, LA or Chicago does.
So rotation's huge. One of the ones they've got to do is look, they're coming back next year. Jacob deGrom will be fully healthy. We saw him at the end of the year. He'll be a full offseason. Kamar Rocker, if you don't know about Kamar Rocker, he'll be another one that should make this team out of spring training. Nathan Eovaldi is a guy that they need to re-sign. He's got an option. He's probably gonna opt out of that and look for more money. That they should be their top concern right there is to get Eovaldi back. And other than that, maybe other than looking at one bat. Now the problem you run into is our TV deal expired. And that was a big deal last year with the TV deal because they were supposed to get $110 million, and they only got 80 because they settled the thing with Diamond Sports. And now they're out of it. They're supposedly going to go in and do their own thing and going forward. But it just, I don't know. Money's still a deal. Ray Davis has not been afraid to spend money. But he's also a businessman. He's not just going to let it sieve money, too. A lot of their money comes from TV.
Let me ask you this, John. A lot of Angel fans, after we won that, were kind of like still able to brag for about 4 or 5 years because the team was consistently making the playoffs after that, given an opportunity to get back to the World Series. Are you going to be fine? Like, what's the timetable for John Moore as a fan, as a super fan of the Rangers, to be like, okay, that's enough. You can win a title. I don't want to be a wonder.
Okay, you broke up there at the end. So, look, I was part. I mean, you got to think about when the Rangers went to the World Series in 10 and 11. They didn't win those years. They went through a stretch there where they made the playoffs 7 out of 9 years, something like that. We're in that window right now. This is a young core team. They're signed. They've got some young talent that's coming up. I think we're in a core where the Rangers are going to compete every year. This was a down year. There's no doubt about it. Next year, it won't be accepted. They'll need to be better prepared. And I think Ranger fans do want to see them do something this offseason. They're going to have a lot of money come off the books. They've got some arbitration players, which is going to probably cost $21 million to get those guys paid. We'll see what they do with this roster. They got a lot of roster decisions to be made. They got some guys they're going to have to protect for Rule 5 that are going to be able to leave if they don't or get picked up and potentially be free agents. So, the Rangers, they should still compete, in my opinion. Next year, I think everyone should feel good coming into next year that this team is be one of the ones picked to do well in the American League West.
How long can you brag title? Because I'll tell you from experience before, when the Angels won, it bought me about 5 or 6 good years of trash talk. After that, I'm like, all right, guys, we need another title.
Yeah, so absolutely. I mean, I've at least got another 1.5 to 2 years, I would say, to brag on it. Now, that's them competing for the West and making the playoffs or at least the wild card. I mean, if they fold their 10 again this year like they did, next year like they did this year, everybody will start to say the old one-hit wonder thing or, do something like that, like the Marlins did back when they went and all of a sudden they, just kind of blew the team up the next year. The Rangers didn't blow the team up. They just underperformed and dealt with a lot of injuries.
Yeah, I blueprints have been there for the Rangers. I mean, here's the thing. Go back to, what was it, 2021 when they got Marcus Semien, they got John Gray, they got Corey Seager. Or was that was right before the 2022 season.
Right.
And everybody thought that, Chris Young was off his rocker, right? Like, why is he spending this amount of money? This team isn't going to contend this year. I think at the earliest, the projections were, This season, 2024, is when the Rangers would start to contend because they had a good farm system. And once they made those moves, I think they were like top 10 in terms of a farm system. So the blueprint was there. But what people didn't realize is that Chris Young, and, he's an Ivy League guy, he was playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. Right. He made these moves. People didn't exactly see the vision. And, of course, the biggest acquisition that seemingly put everything together was convincing Bruce Bochy to come out of retirement. Once that happened, everything clicked for the Texas Rangers, and they immediately made an impact. So I'm really interested to see what Chris Young is going to do long term. Like I told you, I grew up in San Diego, so I was a big Chris Young fan as a pitcher. Loved Bruce Bochy as well. So I do like having both of those guys in my backyard, essentially, because they are great baseball minds to have around an organization.
Yeah. Well, you got to also remember, too, John Daniels has a little bit of his fingerprint on this, too, because he brought in a couple of those guys you're talking about. Now, while the Bruce Bochy thing was with Bruce Bochy, and they also the same year brought in DeGrom and Evaldi as the same year that Bochy came in. But the year before, right before they shut everything down for the lockout, I mean, they brought in Marcus Semien and Corey Seager at the same time. And I mean, this ownership spent over $500 million, up to $700 million in 2 seasons he committed. So, I mean, they weren't afraid to go out and spend the money. And they hadn't done that in a while. Now Ray and them have never been extremely cheap. They've just been smart the way they spent it. They got burned a couple of times. And so now they're like, if we're going to lock these guys in, let's do it the right thing. And you've also got to hit on those guys that you bring in on minor league deals, or you kind of, Tyler Mahle is one who's coming in. He was on the back end of Tommy John and got healthy by the end of the year. Now he went out because he had something with I think he had a hip or a shoulder thing that happened, but it wasn't his elbow. And he just was, he felt something. He had just gotten back and pitched a few games, and then they shut him down because the Rangers were out of it. And they're like, let's get you 100%, but he'll come into spring training completely healthy also. But as anybody knows, I mean, look, it's all going to start with pitching, and Chris Young is a pitching guy, being a pitcher that played in the Rangers organization, he played in the Padres organization, went to the World Series and won it with the Royals as a pitcher. So the guy's a smart guy. Unlike John used to, John would, not unlike John, because John was this way too. They never let on what they were doing. You would think that they, Darvish trade right up until the trade deadline. It looked like they had gone past the trade deadline. It didn't happen. And 4 minutes later, he was traded. They just never give a hint that anything's happening anywhere in their situation. So, I mean, the blueprint's there. They do have the foundation there. They've got some young starting pitching. This is something this organization has never done. And they're finally developing some pitching that's getting to the upper levels. Kamar, who's going to be here next year. You got Jack Leiter, who has struggled a little bit, but his throws, I mean, when his stuff's going, he's a swing and miss guy. I think he's got a chance to make this rotation at the end of the rotation next year, if not be sort of one of those piggyback guys, long rotation guys, and have the 2 Vanderbilt boys here. But, Young, he's smart, and he makes no excuses. I mean, when he sat down last year after he took over and he hired Bochy and all of that, he convinced those guys, DeGrom, Evaldi, Bochy, he said, we're here to win. And he goes, we're going to do whatever it takes to win. And that's what he did. And look, he's been good at pitching it. Now, last year, they didn't really do much in the offseason, and I think that's where a lot of Ranger fans got a little sideways because they didn't do a lot, but they didn't need to do a whole lot.
Yeah,
you kind of thought
you had a loaded rotation potentially.
Right. And I think they thought you'll get into the season, and if you need somebody, we'll go address it at the trade deadline. This is good enough that we'll be in this thing going there. And they just weren't. They never got going like they should have.
I mean, you think about it like this. You had, a potential of at some point DeGrom, Scherzer, you had Evaldi, you had Heaney, you had John Gray, you had Michael Lorenzen at one point. You know what I mean?
Tyler Mahle.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's a lot of depth already.
Yeah.
Most teams don't even have that.
Right.
When guys like, Lorenzen, Malley, and, Heaney are potentially on the outside looking in of a rotation, there's some rotations where those are number 3, type guys. For the Angels, we were stupid enough to put Heaney at ace. So go figure. But
I would say this, John, like watching the Rangers this year, like I said before, it reminded me a lot of the 2003 Angels. And, they had guys that just went down with injuries, veterans that just weren't playing like they did the prior season. And you're right. You have a lot of depth in that farm system coming up. And I think that's the difference with us. Like we're scraping the barrel. Your run differential was 55, minus 55. Ours was minus 162.
Yeah.
And I know you guys disappeared at times and had some shutouts against that offense. And, Garcia didn't went through cold spells and, injuries in and out of the lineups. But I mean, our lineup was like a AA lineup, and you still had Halo honks screaming for pitching. When our pitching, I think the Ron Washington effect really helped the pitching this year. I thought the pitching was great. The bullpen, like whatever scraps we got from players being designated for assignment, they brought them here. All of a sudden, they're doing good. My issue was I think we relied too much on the stupid analytics. I want to hear your thoughts about analytics because Bochy is one of those guys who I thought Ron would take the bull by the horn and be like, okay, I like, what's coming from upstairs, but I'm not going to use it right now. Or I'm going to use it here, but not there. I'm going to use it at my discretion. I think, at least from my opinion, Ron had to follow a script offensively and hitting wise, because sometimes the lineups were weird. The way they approached other pitchers was weird. Does Bochy have the control to say, hey man, no analytics tonight?
Believe me when I tell you this, Bochy has complete control of whatever he wants on that lineup. And I would venture to guess Ron probably does too. I know that the ownership there, your guys' ownership there, I don't know if is he hands-on? Does he get in the middle of everything?
Yeah, Jerry Jones.
He is he's a fan first, but he doesn't hire the guys and let them run the team. And I think that's where Ron thought he was going to be the guy and put his stamp on this team. And I'm telling you, he did on pitching, but I will go to my grave saying that he was told what to do with a lineup. Yeah, because it just didn't make sense. And Ron would sometimes, get a squeeze play, do the small ball, and it worked. And then we went away with it the next 3-4 games and wonder why we are averaging 2 runs a game. Like this team swung for the fences like we had the Rangers lineup, and it didn't make any sense.
It's like to solidify, like help your question, like prove your point, Todd. If you remember, like the last week of the season, Ron Washington was interviewed, and he had made that whole statement about like, oh well, hopefully they'll give me a major league lineup or major.
Yeah,
league
he took some
player.
shots.
Yeah, he took some shots. And I don't even think that was as much as the players. I think that was also maybe towards the ownership in terms of like, hey, you're giving me – I can only do so much with a cow pie.
Right now, John, let me just be honest with you. The frustration from Angel fans, we haven't been united, but we are united on one thing. Everybody hates Artie, and I would take your worst in your fandom, your career of being a fan of the Rangers, your worst owner any day over Artie Moreno. Let's just say that.
Yeah, well, the worst owner we ever had might have been Tom Hicks, who took him into bankruptcy, but he took him into bankruptcy, spending money. But Tom Hicks wasn't in front of the camera. Look, I'm a Cowboy fan, but I have not put one dime into the Dallas Cowboys in 20-something years because Jerry Jones holds a press conference after every football game. And I am sorry, if you are the owner of a team, you don't talk to the press unless you're firing the general manager. That's the only reason you ever talk to the press. You don't walk down after the game and talk to the media.
Thank you. I agree, because it's like when we did win a couple division titles, and granted, he was feasting off of Disney scraps at that point. I've never seen an owner when they win a division getting champagne poured on him routinely. Right. He had to be there. It's like, okay, I've seen it in championships, when they win the ALCS or the NLCS and the World Series, of course, but he was front and center. He made sure he was there.
So it's really funny because being in the media, we got to be there for the celebrations last year. Now I did not go on the road, so I wasn't there when they won the World Series, but when they won against the Orioles, they won it here at home, and they had the big celebration going to the ALCS. And we went in there. Neil Liebman and Ray Davis were in there, standing over in the corner to the side, just with grins on their faces, nowhere near the action.
That's cool.
And they were just over on the side with big grins, enjoying it. Guys were bringing them beers they were pouring Budweiser on everybody. They didn't get it poured on them. They probably would have enjoyed it if they did, but they were not going to put themselves in the middle of it. They'll come out, their little suite, at the ballpark, the Globe Life Field, all the big suites are down right below the, y'all have it there too. I always see Scott Boras back behind home plate.
Yeah.
But they're those lower field level ones. Well, the owner's right there next to the dugout, and Ray and Neil will come out of the dugout and come out batting practice and all of that. But they never talk to the media. They don't interject themselves. They're not talking to coach. They're not saying anything to coaches unless they're coming up and giving them a hug, shaking their hand, or saying hi to one of the players. But they just kind of go over and look at the fans that you can pay to go down there and watch batting practice and all this stuff. And you never hear from them. They're not going to sit and talk to media. They'll shake our hands, say hello, thanks for coming out, and then they're out of the way. And that's the way every owner should be of every organization. And you know what? He fired John Daniel, and Ray Davis talked in front of the cameras because he was like, I fired him this morning, and Chris Young's taken over. And that was the only time he answered a few questions, and then he was out of there.
This dude used to pride himself as far as walking around the concourses and stuff like that. But when the team's losing, he disappears. And I think if you're going to be in front when they're winning, you should be there when they're losing. And this year, I got to say this, Fernando, because I don't know, John, if you've ever been to Angel Stadium when they do Calling All Angels.
No.
Right? Okay, so before it starts, they do a montage of like all the history of the Angels, kind of catch up new fans and show highlights of careers and stuff like that, Angel greats. And Artie Moreno was in that, montage in the beginning like 2 or 3 times. And when he came on the Jumbotron on opening day, I've never heard that stadium boo louder. And it was just overwhelming so much. And his ego is so massive that going forward from that day, I went to 30 games this year. He took himself out of the montage.
Hey, let me just personally, as a Ranger fan, say I hope Artie Moreno owns the team forever.
You know what, John? I liked you there for a minute.
Don't ever sell it, Artie. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh,
and just like that, DLLS and its affiliated team members will never be on the show again. Just because of those words. So to tie it into the Angels here, I want to ask one more Rangers-related question. So going into the 2020 season, obviously before the world shut down, Globe Life Field was being constructed and opening day was set in place.
Right.
The biggest rumor around that time, as I'm sure you remember, was, hey, the Rangers need to make a splash. Anthony Rendon is from Texas. He's going to be a Ranger. That wasn't 1 or 2 articles. I'm sure you remember that speculation was everywhere. It was he's going to be a Ranger or he's going to be a Dodger. Those were the 2 things that everybody said.
Yep.
Anthony Rendon in his press conference when he signed with the Angels had said he didn't want to go to the Dodgers because it was too Hollywood, but he still wanted to live in LA, so he wanted the Angels. Going into the 2020 season, were you confident that, hey, there's a potential that we're going to get one of the best third basemen in baseball at that time?
Yeah, and they had just come off the Nationals had just won, and he was, big part coming out of that. And so what it came down to actually was, and I laugh at it now, but so that it was that 7th year. There was, the Rangers offered the same AAV of 30 million or whatever it was, but they offered 6 years and with an option for 7. And Scott Boras took that in to took it into Artie Moreno and sold him on that. And all of a sudden Rendon had signed. I remember being very disappointed, but I also understood I didn't want to go 7 years. I was like, this is a guy that was already close to 30 years old. I mean, he's not going to be, when you get to the end of it, you'll probably be DH anymore and move him somewhere else. I mean, third base isn't bad. He's a good defender. I mean, he is a good defender. But man, to watch those first couple of years after y'all signed him, and we were just looking up and saying thank you that didn't happen. I mean,
John,
and I don't know how y'all feel about him. And look, when he plays,
Do not like him.
hate him.
he seems like he doesn't enjoy playing baseball.
No,
Because he said he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. He has said vocally he doesn't.
He's actually, been on record for saying he does not like playing baseball, never liked it, and
he said he can't watch it,
and wishes the season was shorter. So
Yeah, and I've been around him when the Angels were in town. You go over and the players are be taking batting practice and doing all that, and he just didn't have a lot of guys around him. He doesn't have most of these guys they have their cliques and their people all around them and all of that, and he was just kind of on his own, sitting in the dugout over there. Yep. He just wasn't really. I did hear something about him saying that when he said something to the effect of it was something about not loving the game or doing whatever, and I was basically like, well, then quit. Freaking quit. If you don't want to play, then quit.
Our fan base,
$38 million a year.
Yeah, our fan base goes out of its way to boo him. And I'm telling you right now, John, you guys didn't dodge a bullet. You dodged a bazooka. I mean,
an RPG.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that guy is a cancer. And Artie was like again, your brass is thinking rationally, when you're breaking down, should we sign him? Should we not? Going back to Fernando's question. But our brass is like, hey, we need pitching. Let's sign a third baseman. Absolutely. Next available. They did it like a fantasy football draft.
Yep. I think that year also, was that the year that Garrett Cole was a free agent too?
Correct. Yeah. And the Angels were rumored to, hey, they're front runners for Cole.
Yep. We were too. They kept talking that the Rangers might be in on Garrett Cole and Rendon, and then Cole signed with the Yankees, and then Rendon signed with the Angels, and everybody. And you know what happened very soon after that? The Rangers. So the Rangers had kind of been in a rebuild after about 17, and they were trying to get back. And what happened was what was his name? Good Lord, they made the trade with Emmanuel Clase for the Indians for what's his name, and he came in and pitched one pitch. Good Lord, I'm having a blank. I'm sorry, guys, my mind went blank. Okay. Anyway, he was the ace of the Indians, or the Guardians. They're now the Guardians. And we traded Emmanuel Clase, one of the best closers in all of baseball, for him. He comes over here. He pitches one inning in the second game of the season. He's out for the rest of the season. He's gone because he had 1 year left on his deal. He leaves, goes somewhere else. God, it's going to drive me crazy. Who did he end up with this year? It's going to drive me crazy.
Corey Kluber.
Corey Kluber. That's who it was.
Yeah.
Corey Kluber. And Corey Kluber was an ace. There's no way around it. He was an unbelievable pitcher. So we had Corey Kluber going into that year. That rotation really was looking like it was going to be okay. They had hit on Lance Lynn. They were going to have Corey Kluber, Lance Lynn. And, they had a couple of guys there that we thought, okay, well, if this staff does what it can, and we're coming in, and that's back when we had Joey Gallo also and all of that, and this offense clicked in the new stadium. World shuts down. We don't get Rendon. That was somebody we thought we were going to get. Maybe get Garrett Cole to go with it. We didn't get that. And then, and then you realize just how bad the Rangers were when the season started. I remember that. So as a member of the media, when the world was open and the way it is now, when you get there, you were able to go in to the clubhouse before the game. You'd get down there about 3:30 or 3 o'clock, go to the clubhouse, talk to some of the players, go out on the field by the dugout while they hit batting practice infield. You'll catch some out there to talk to there. During COVID, we weren't allowed to leave the press box. So all we could do was sit in the press box, and everything was done on a Zoom call. That's how Zoom became so big. Yeah. And so the interview was a Zoom call afterwards. And it was a good thing it was, because, you didn't have to go in there and see those guys after a loss. It is the quietest clubhouse you can ever see. And, those guys are just in there sulking. And you couldn't see that because we only saw whoever they brought into the interview room, which I'm sure the players loved. But no, it was – we thought that was going to happen. That stadium was brand new. And then they ended up playing the World Series there and kind of opened the world back up. And they started letting them sell. And that's when the Dodgers won the World Series there in Arlington and at the ballpark.
Yeah, we don't talk about that here, John.
Yeah, we call it the ring pop year because, they never left Global Life Field.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they had their bubble.
Yeah.
Yep. So we told you 30 to 40 minutes, so I have a couple of quick questions here, and then we'll wrap up, and hopefully we can get you on in the future.
Sure.
So I want to ask your opinion about the Angels on the outside looking in. I want to start there. So from you, a Rangers fan, who has religiously followed the Rangers, what are the Angels right now?
In my opinion, I think the Angels are a team that are on the trajectory to start to make their way up. I mean, you got what Shanley is. I like that guy, first baseman. Shanuel, however you say it. I'm a hit, guys. I say every name wrong because I don't cover them normally. Kamar Rocker, it's Kamar, right? That they say like Lamar with an L. They had to tell us that before he got called up because we all called him Kumar. Kumar Rocker.
I think most people call him Kumar Rocker.
But it's Kamar. Okay. That's the way the media will tell you how they want it pronounced. So Shanwell, I mean, I liked him. I think with Ron Washington, if they let Ron Washington manage, that guy, it floors me that he never got a job. When he left the Rangers, he left for personal reasons. It turned out there was some marital issues, and he had been unfaithful, and he had to get, so he did it for personal reasons. He left and did that. But they loved him he's great with young players. He gets players and he makes them work. He doesn't put up with bullshit. I can say that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
okay. Right. But he doesn't put up with it. He expects you to do the work. He expects you to do that. He's going to, Derek Holland was one of the best pitchers in both years we went to the World Series. And Ron Washington would grab him by the nape of the neck and get in his face and say, look, you are not a rookie. Get out there. You have a job to do. I know this is a big stage, but you're not going to go out there and let this get too big. And that's the way he was handling your rotation. He did that too. He came up an infielder. He can turn anybody into a Gold Glover. I mean, he's done it from Eric Chavez. He did it, Elvis Andrus, and people like that. He rides those young guys' tails. He loves y'all. Who was it? He was telling us about Neto. Jack Neto. Neto. He loves Neto. Oh, yeah. He told us, we were talking to him outside the dugout. He shoots the shit with Jeff every time I'm there. I just get to be there to listen to it.
A fly on the wall.
Yeah, they're buddies. And so it's just us sitting there outside the dugout in fact, Jeff went there for the last series because Ron had a bunch of stuff for him and, they hooked up, but he sat there and he talked about Neto. Did he bench him or something like that at one point? He pulled him or did something.
Yeah.
And then he was like, he why the fuck I did it.
Yeah.
It was real funny how he said it to us. And he goes, he knows why, why the fuck it happened. And, it was hysterical. And I'm telling you, Neto will be an all-star. If he sees it, if he is riding your ass, that means he sees it. He knows you've got it.
Yeah, he wants the best out of it. I got two quick questions, rapid fire if I can. Being a Ranger fan this entire time, you've seen that division change left and right. I'm sure you've heard of the rumors if they expand, where the Rangers would be in the Central, the new Central. Are you opposed to that? Do you like that idea? And then the B part of that question is, how have you thought of the Angels over the years? Are they one of the top rivals? Are they the top rival to the Rangers?
So they used to be, for sure. They always were, especially when y'all were so good. And God dang, Vladimir Guerrero had a hitting streak. Good God, that guy. And you know what?
First year, hit anything.
Yeah, he would hit a ball bouncing in for a double. But he was our DH when we went to the World Series that first year.
Correct.
He signed up and just unbelievable. I call it, I love it, and it's called sports hate. Now, sports hate is hating a player on the other team, even though they're a great dude and they're a wonderful person, and boy, you would be starstruck when you meet them. It's on the field, I sports hate, but God, you're kind of rooting for that guy just because they're good humans. Mike Trout's a big one because he kills the Rangers, but he's one of the greatest human beings. He's just a nice dude. My interactions with him, I've only kind of been close and run into him a few times, and you just can't. But he's sports hate because he killed the Rangers, and doing that. So, yeah, the Rangers were a rival, and I mean the Angels were always a rival, but y'all were always better than us, and those couple of years, and then y'all signed away Josh Hamilton and
CJ Wilson.
CJ Wilson. You took it from our World Series team, and both of them failed there. It just surprised me because Josh Hamilton's one of the biggest freak of natures I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And you know, and it doesn't work out sometimes. He really probably didn't need to get away from where he was when he deals with all his addiction problems. And
when you guys had him, you guys had a coach with him. You had someone, you know, like a reliable buddy.
He had a support system.
He had none of that there. Artie did not want to provide that. So I think that's what led to it.
Yeah, it was an accountability partner.
There you go.
Stay with him. Yeah. And did that. And you know, and his wife kind of ran that deal. And the Rangers, you know, we ended up getting him back at the end. Artie traded him to us for I think a bucket of balls.
Yeah,
for like a bucket of balls.
A Whataburger sandwich.
Yeah, Whataburger, a bucket of balls, and we had to fill up the Coke machine or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but you know, just to get rid of him, and that was fine. And he didn't perform like he normally did here, and he ended up it was his last stand before getting out. Of course, his career was so derailed, he didn't become a rookie till he was like 27, 28 because of his addiction problems. But the way I see him right now, you know, there'll always be a rival. The hated rival for us is the Astros. And you know that, and it really wasn't that way. The reason it kind of became that way with the Astros was the year that Hurricane Harvey hit down there and flooded the Astrodome, or Minute Maid, and there was a lot of flooding down there, and so that stuff hit. And the day that all of it hit, the next day the Rangers were supposed to be, or the next series was supposed to be in Houston. And so they said, well, you know what? Why don't we just switch? We'll make our home teams up here. You just make it your home games. And then when our next series plays, we'll just go down there. And we were like, you can't do that. We've got people that buy these, you know, we have this Stilla base and all this stuff. And my kid did it when he was 12 years old. Now he's in college, but these things are booked months in advance. And we had grandparents flying in from Illinois and all of that to be there that night, to go to this thing where he got to get on the field and do that. We had bought it before the season starts. And now you're going to give them about 3 weeks notice that, nope, instead of you coming down in a month, you need to be here tomorrow night, because now that's going to be your Stilla base. And we were like, no. And at the time it was John Daniels. He was like, I can't do that. Just do that decision just like that. He said, look, y'all can have the entire gate. You can have everything. We'll give you every dollar that we make on the concessions, everything. It'll all go to you. We won't take any cut. We'll do everything, but we just can't move the game like that. And it became this big deal where we weren't, you know, the Rangers were this horrible organization that didn't have sympathy or compassion and all of that. And it was like, no, you guys are asking them to make a decision in 24 hours to do this. And so the Astros got so mad at that. I don't know if y'all remember this. They got so mad that the Rangers did that. They packed up and they moved that series to Tampa Bay. And so everyone went to Tampa Bay, and they drew about 11 people to the games because Tampa Bay doesn't draw anybody to Tampa Bay. And now you got the Astros and Rangers there, and nobody cared about that crap. And we were like, you just gave away so much money because you have Astro fans all in the DFW Metroplex. Yeah. And give those tickets to all of them. You bring your ticket base. If they've got a ticket at your thing, bring them up. They can get in. We'll give them seats here. They get them for free. All of that, you know, whatever you needed just to do it. But now and then that's where it got heated at the beginning. And now they've become the rival, and the fans really bicker about it back and forth. And it's become like a college football rival. It's kind of the way they don't like each other.
That's good.
Yeah.
A good, healthy rivalry. I like it.
I love it. It was
born by a natural. It was born in a natural way.
Yeah, and yesterday was beautiful. I mean, you know, I'm a big fan of the Tigers.
Yeah, exactly.
You know that we have won more playoff games in Houston than Houston has in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Oh. Glad to know that.
That's definitely something to light up the message boards with.
Yeah, they've lost the last 6 home games at home, you know, in Houston in the playoffs.
I think their window's closing.
Yeah, their window's
I think it. I think it is. I think they're on the backside. I think Seattle and Texas are going to probably be sliding up, and the team follow them. It won't be Oakland. It'll always be the Angels. Y'all are the guys that if it's not next year, which next year's probably another year, we're going to kind of be right below that. But I think you catch the Astros easy because Bregman's gone. I don't know that they're gonna get back Verlander. They gave away their best freaking player.
Yeah.
And, at the trade deadline, and Kikuchi didn't even play in the playoffs. I mean, he hadn't pitched in a while. So, they were going for it this year. I think they saw that window. What is the Muppet? I mean, he's
Patrick Mahomes.
no, Altuve. Sorry.
Oh.
I've never heard him referred to as a Muppet. That's
what he's 5'4". He looks like somebody's ventriloquist doll out there. He's a sports hate though. Nicest guy, hell of a player. Good Lord, his career. But he's 35, 36. I mean, he's getting up there. At least 33, 34. He's getting long in the tooth. I mean, I don't even know that they're going to keep Kyle Tucker. I mean, he may be gone from there too. And it certainly seems like they're a team that tanks. They built that organization when they won 50 games like 3 or 4 years in a row, and just got the first pick every year for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, they're in theory quickly going to disintegrate here. I mean, I honestly, I don't want to get too far into this one. I feel like Seattle lost the division more so than Houston won the division because nobody else really contended. So they, by default, kind of ran away with it because Seattle looked good for like 70% of this season.
Yep.
Okay. So 2 more questions. I'm really going to put you on the spot with these. Mike Trout. So I don't know if you've ever heard the term that the kids say, cooked, to, say that someone's phasing out. They're not what they used to be. So with that being said, in your opinion, is Mike Trout cooked? We haven't seen a full Mike Trout season since roughly 2019, and even that wasn't a full season.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's getting up there a little bit. I mean, you can never count Mike Trout out because if he's healthy, good God, it's almost not fair that how good he is. So I would never say that Mike Trout's cooked until he's cooked. I certainly think he's got to be healthy. He's, at his age, he's starting to get crazy little injuries that are happening now. And that's just a part of getting older because he lays his body out and he puts 100% into everything he does. Maybe time to move him out of center field. That's you got to cover a lot of ground out there, move him to a corner and DH some games because that bat in the lineup can change an entire lineup. I would never say, let me tell you what, if Artie's wanting to dump salary and do that and he wants to come over and play for the Texas Rangers, I would stand with open arms ready to kiss him today. I mean, that's how much I think of Mike Trout. So I will never say he's cooked until he's officially cooked. I just think nobody can deal with injuries. When you get older, you just don't, you got to protect yourself. I think if he was younger and he got some of these injuries, he'd try to play through them. Now you're at an age where if the team's not going to totally compete, I need to get myself healthy. And I can't go out there and risk further damage by getting out there and trying to fight through it.
I appreciate that, John. That's a good take. By the way, real quick, John, I really appreciate your time. I got to jump off. I'm getting a conference call here from the family, but I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we could do this again with a network. I've heard some great stuff about it, and also about your guys' podcast. So appreciate the time, John, and we'll catch up some other time.
Thanks, Todd. Yeah, anytime, you guys. Okay.
All right, I have one last question because Todd said he had to go. So I want your opinion on this. So the Angels haven't made the playoffs in 10 years. Okay. With that being said, will they go down as one of the biggest failures in baseball when it's all said and done, considering they had guys like Hamilton, Upton, Trout, Ohtani, Pujols, and they didn't win anything?
A biggest failure, I don't know about that. Look what the Mets did last year when they signed everybody under the sun and then didn't make the playoffs. I mean, this year they did, but they traded off everybody they signed last year. If you could get Artie Moreno to be level-headed and listen to somebody in the front office when they say, this is the dumbest fucking Simon in the world, we don't need this. But he sees the big, pretty lights, and, he loves to have the big, pretty toys. You've got a Jerry Jones on your hands. It could be and I think it's more your ownership's fault than the organization's fault. I mean, look, y'all are a team that won the World Series a couple of years there, and had great teams. And we're always winning back when Tim Salmon and all those guys were there, and you guys were always winning and doing well. You could say it's been a failure, but I don't know that it's the biggest failure. At some point, it's not going to be the organization's fault as much as sometimes it's the players' fault. Look, you get paid a lot of money. You have to step up. You got to dedicate to it, and you got to hold your younger kids accountable. And you got to be in there and not collect a paycheck, and you got to be in people's faces going, I don't like to lose. This is the way we need to go.
Yeah, I mean, ownership certainly needs to make the right moves. They need to listen to the right baseball people. But at the end of the day, that's just sports, right? It's not always going to work out. I mean, there's only so much of an excuse. Every team deals with injuries. Every team deals with underperforming. I mean, I don't ever like giving the Dodgers credit, but look, they've had every single pitcher on earth get hurt this year. You know what I mean? At this point, they're about to send you and I out there, John. You know what I mean? They're running out of options. And they are still where they are. Even if they get bounced by the Padres here in the NLDS, which I'm hoping for, it still doesn't change the fact that they've had, the odds stacked against them, and they found a way to get it done.
Yep.
So, you can be the hammer or you can be the nail. And that's just the beauty in baseball. And in my opinion, why baseball is the best sport out there.
Yeah, I think, and I think that part of the issue with the Angels too, I mean, look, Sosha was a good manager and a good leader going in there. And then I think you have gotten yourself the closest to a new Sosha in Ron Washington at the helm right now. Bruce Bochy at the helm of the Rangers. You got to love that right now too. The guys that will listen to analytics, but when it comes down to it, there's part of feel and gut and doing that. So look, when you come into it, I really think, I hope this too. I really think that the Texas and Seattle will probably kind of rise to the two that'll compete this year, kind of way the Astros and Seattle did. And I really think the Astros are going to start to decline. And I think the Angels will be a third place team next year. I don't think they'll be in fourth or fifth. The A's, the A's are the team too that all of a sudden will go in and sweep you in a series when you don't know anybody on their roster. I mean, they're just, it shows you
their front office doesn't know some guys on that roster.
Absolutely. I mean, they pick up guys outside selling hot dogs and he comes up and goes 2 for 3 and knocks one out. It's the way it is with that organization, and what they've done to that fan base was shameful. I mean, and I understand you got to have a stadium. I've been to that stadium. It is a piece of shit. I mean, good God. It is the worst thing it's one of walking across that thing over to the stadium. You feel like you're walking through a prison yard. I mean, the way that they have the
bridge
barbed
from the
wire.
bar, you mean?
Yeah, the bar coming over. I mean, you're like, wow, okay. But they're a storied franchise and what they're doing right now. But I think the Angels, I think you're going to be good. You just gotta. It's time. If you don't think Trout is going to be there when it happens, turn him into some 4 or 5 great prospects, stuff you can flip and go, and really build a foundation of this thing. And I think you could go there. And I don't know, who do y'all have as your GM?
Perry Manassian.
Yeah, he was a Texas guy, by the way. He used to work in the Texas clubhouse, I think, or something years ago. But grew up around here, I believe. But anyway, he's a smart guy. I think but Artie's got to let him do his job.
Absolutely. And that's been Artie's problem. A lot of the times our audience and, even we have said, what's him? What's analytics? Are they, because at the end of the day, if all you do is follow analytics, it doesn't matter who the manager is. It could be a trained monkey. You could have Bruce Bochy. And, obviously Bruce Bochy is a little more stubborn where he wouldn't only listen to analytics. But the point is, it doesn't matter who's there. If it's the same information and they're running the same game plan, why have a manager? You know what I mean?
Yep.
At
Yeah.
that point, send a 10-year-old every day and have the kid of the game be the manager, because it doesn't matter. You have to give, we had Heath Bell on, and I'm sure you remember Heath Bell, very great closer. And he had mentioned Bruce Bochy, and he said Bruce Bochy loves analytics because he takes it in, he learns what he can from it, and he uses it to help make his decision. But at the end of the day, Bruce Bochy is going to make Bruce Bochy's decision. He'll listen to the analytics, he'll listen to the recommendation, but that is his decision.
Yep.
And that's how it should be. You give these guys the information, they use their, baseball intelligence that normal people don't have.
Right.
And they go from there. Because, if you have guys like Brad Osmus, he was very, very much by the computer, listened to all the analytics, did it in Detroit, did it in Anaheim, and it didn't necessarily work out for him in those capacities.
Right.
That's...
you can't manage a game looking at your iPad.
Yes.
So that's, Bochy and Ron aren't going to be on their iPads unless they're watching tape on somebody. But more than that, when they're in the game, you don't see them holding an iPad, looking at everything on the iPad. They're doing the game. They might ask questions to the guy holding the iPad, but they're not holding the iPad. So, and there's got to be some of that to it. And I believe you can't put it past some of these guys that played this game for years. They don't have to have been big time major leaguers, but if you played this game and grinded it out for a lot of years, make great managers. They know what it's like to be on the field and to do that. It's really what's kind of impressive about Chris Young and what he expects, because he's played it. He knows where the players are coming from. I think that helps him in some of the signings he gets. These guys know he's not just some suit up there. He played. He had to deal with, with agents and all of that. So,
yeah, he is a perfect baseball mind because he's well educated. You know what I mean? Where was it? Was it Princeton he went to?
Yeah, he went to Princeton. He's from Dallas already. Highland Park. Clayton Kershaw and Matt Stafford are here from the same high school he went to. He went to Princeton. I think he was drafted by the Rangers.
Went to the Rangers, and then from there went to the Padres.
And then he was traded to the Padres.
Exactly.
For Osuka, the closer.
Akinari Otsuka.
Otsuka, yeah. See, I can't.
And then Akinari Otsuka went back to the Texas Rangers afterward, where he came out to Hell's Bells. I remember.
Yep. Hey, breaking news: Terry Francona just got hired as the Reds manager.
Just now?
That's what I just saw it come across.
Okay, all right.
So,
I have not
fired David Bell, but I didn't. They made a decision quick. Hey, that's another one. Terry Francona is like Bochy, and he's like, he's a guy that's won World Series with the Red Sox. That's another guy. Look, these older managers are starting to become more popular again.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, Terry Francona obviously was able to break the curse. So,
yep.
All right, John, thank you very much for your time. It went a little longer than I told you. So, hopefully you enjoyed the banter. Where can our audience find you and your team if they want to follow the Rangers?
Yeah, so you can you follow me at Recliner Nerd on both Instagram and Twitter. You can follow the podcast at DLLS _Rangers or at DLS _sports. And also our weekly podcast as at Rangers _podcast, still from the Rangers Today podcast, but it's the DLLS weekly podcast. And if you go to our website and you want DFW sports news, sign up for that. You go there. It's ALLDLLS.com. So all city sports, ALLDLLS.com. It's new. I'm trying to learn it here.
Yeah, learning on the fly. I mean, you guys have only been going with All City for
about a month.
A little over a month. Yeah. I think it was August 30th or something like that.
Yep.
So to our audience, on behalf of all of us here at Halos in the Infield, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to follow our new friends over at the handles, and we will have that information for you guys. Have a great rest of your day wherever you're listening.